Michigan Wolverines heading on the road to play Minnesota after an absolutely dominant performance in Lincoln. I mean, you talk about a national championship caliber team. If they'll, I'm a Michigan fan. I get it. If you asked me to line up tomorrow and pick a championship caliber team, I think I'm going with the Michigan Wolverines after what you saw in Lincoln. Really excited to take a look at what Minnesota poses to Michigan and get into some of these key matchups. Now, before we do, just want to say again, thank you to you guys. Y'all know we love talking Michigan football. The support from the Michigan fans has been absolutely phenomenal. So if you do enjoy the content, you want to support the fellas, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, and especially Michigan fans, let us know in the comment section how we're feeling after that win in Lincoln last Saturday. The boys were fired up. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. I'm going to kick this one off to you. Michigan heading on the road to Minnesota. How we feeling here?
Yeah, I mean, if Michigan plays the way they play against Nebraska every game moving forward, there's only maybe one team that if they play their absolute A game, they could even kind of challenge Michigan, and that's Ohio State. Because like that type of game that Michigan put out there was so dominant. That's as good of an offensive performance that I've seen from Michigan and
yes,
maybe since Jim Harbaugh's era. Like just being able to run the ball the heavy physical way they wanted, being able to spread it out and throw it to pretty much every part of the field. Like everything they did worked. That's like the offense I think we all were hoping to see with an improved JJ, and I think we got it.
And the thing that you have to mention is that was a Nebraska defense that was top 5 in the country against the run heading in. Like that wasn't like a group of 5 defense. I get Nebraska has some problems, especially on the offense side of the ball. That was a legit defense, and Michigan just absolutely handled them. I mean, you saw that offensive line reestablish the line of scrimmage like we haven't seen in the previous couple games in this 2023 season. If you're a Michigan fan, from that offensive performance, you have to be fired up. The fellas, you can tell the fellas are fired up. Now, I want to get into this Minnesota matchup because Minnesota, it's a quality team, especially in the back end. And what I'm most excited for and looking at in this matchup, and again, getting to the actual game matchup, if Michigan plays like they did in Lincoln, they are handling this Minnesota team. That being said, Minnesota has multiple guys in the back end, Justin Wally, Tyler Nubin, who are NFL caliber players. Tyler Nubin might be the best safety in the country. Really excited to see if Michigan can continue that success in the explosiveness through the air against the secondary from Minnesota. That is pretty damn good.
Well, and that's like I almost think what you want to see because honestly, I think if Michigan wanted to, they could run it pretty much every time they want. And again, you're just looking, this Minnesota front seven has just not been what it has been. It lost a lot of guys, but I'm almost with you. Like you just want to see those wide receivers kind of continue to play at like a dominant level where they're winning their one-on-one routes. They're catching balls deep. They're taking balls like catch and run type plays, making those like Roman
catching it on the back of guys' helmets and catching them for touchdowns.
So it's almost like, yeah, like let's go challenge this Minnesota secondary that, again, I'll echo what you said is very good and show that like this is like the type of offense that can go win a national title. Because again, last year it just wasn't explosive enough consistently, and they never really found enough rhythm in their passing attack. I kind of want to see them string a couple games now of like really dynamic passing against quality teams, frankly.
What I want to focus on here with Michigan's passing attack is the battery you're seeing develop between JJ and Roman. And that's like you look at national championship like winning teams, and Georgia the last couple of years, I mean, you could say Stetson Bennett, Brock Bowers for sure. But in a lot of those Alabama teams, a lot of the elite Ohio State teams, they had that quarterback wide receiver duo that was absolutely dominant. And I think you're starting to see that with Michigan to an extent we haven't really seen before. Like Ronnie Bell and JJ were on the same page a lot last year. That was a nice duo, but it didn't have as much of the juice as I think Roman Wilson brings with that electric speed. And then you throw in guys like Cornelius Johnson, Colston Loveland, who, again, one of the best tight ends in the entire country. Dill, if you continue to see this offense, specifically with their passing attack, take those strides, this is going to be a special Michigan offense.
And that's obviously coupled with the fact that you just know this run game is good. And frankly, that's as good as we've seen the offensive line play all year by a wide margin. I mean, I thought the tight ends were blocking really well. They were moving people. Obviously, the whole offensive line, they were moving. Again, tough guys in the middle for Nebraska. They were moving them off the ball. that classic. That's how it looked like when it was really humming last year at Michigan. Is like you could just line up, you're gonna knock guys 3 yards off the ball pretty much consistently,
And then
and you had
Blake
big
Corum.
holes, and you were
Yeah.
gashing. And that's what they were
Now,
doing.
I want to mention, I'm going to special shout out here. We knew Blake Corum was that guy. I thought Donovan Edwards ran the ball about as hard as we've seen him run it all year. Khalil Mullings. And I think that adds such an element that we kind of didn't have last year. Blake Corum, as good of a running back as he is, wasn't like he runs the ball hard. Like, this is me not taking away anything from Blake Corum. We didn't have that goal line back. Like, we tried to get Khalil Mullings in there late, but I mean, he was a linebacker switching to running back. You obviously had that muffed exchange against TCU. Though Khalil Mullings looks like he's solidified his running back 3 spot. And when you talk about a short yardage back, a battering ram kind of back that we don't necessarily have, I think Khalil Mullings is certainly.
I love those other 2 backs, but he needs to get touches. I mean, I don't like the way he was running the football yesterday. Just like first contact was never enough. He was always getting 3-4 yards. It felt like after the first contact. And again, you've seen Michigan now struggle for like kind of a handful of years to be able to run short yardage plays. For whatever reason, the running game works until it gets into that like tight little window. And then it's been a problem. If Khalil can play that game, and frankly, I'm not saying he shouldn't get a few touches just anywhere, because like he kind of needs to have that run on that like either 3rd or 4th and 1 where he took it to the house. That's such a good run. I mean, just a hard physical run right up through the gut.
Especially with like the running back room, as much as it's like the best running back room in the country. Like, the depth last year wasn't great, right? Like, Donovan Edwards was banged up pretty much all year last year when Blake Corum was kind of the only back that Michigan trusted last year. So, obviously, knock on wood, Dono and Blake stay healthy. But you have a legit running back 3 now. Like, this is
staying healthy is part of, like, being able to control their reps a little bit and not need to, again, like what we talked about in the offseason, run a Blake Corum 40 times against the Minnesota team. You can throw in a Khalil Mullings and run and give you good hard runs.
And especially when you're this Michigan team, like you're not trying to win in September. Like, yeah, you got to win in September. You're focused on winning into November, into December, and January. That's where we want to be winning our football games. That's when we want Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Khalil Mullings to be fresh. You add another capable body that can run the rock like Khalil Mullings, it's going to be massive for this Michigan team. Now, Dill, we spent 7 minutes, 30 seconds talking about this Michigan offense. Obviously, the boys are fired up about it. Talk about the number 1 defense in the country right now. 6 points per game. That's number 1 in the country. Going up against the Minnesota offense that they're going to want to be physical. They're going to want to run the football. That being said, they also have a quarterback that I think should be uncorked a little bit. You talk about Ethan Callick-McManus. He's got a way better arm than Tanner Morgan ever had. I hope they use him as a Big Ten college football fan. I hope they let him cook a little bit. But they'll starting with this Michigan defense. I'll just give you the T-box here. How are we feeling about this group?
And you mentioned it, like I get that Minnesota wants to be physical. There's just I don't see how they run the football particularly effectively at all against what Michigan's doing. I mean, the fact that the defensive tackle play is like not skipped a beat after obviously losing Mozzie Smith their draft, it maybe even got a little better, frankly, because Chris Jenkins' level is way up. Mason Graham's level when he's been healthy has been way up. In the emergence of Kenneth Grant, who's just a dominant football player, I just don't see how they move it against this front 7. The D tackles are too big. They're not getting moved around. You got 3 new faces in the inside for Minnesota. In at the linebacker, you got, again, 3 really guys who played a ton of football and are playing at a really high level. I just don't see how they attack this Michigan.
Yeah, I think this Minnesota team just misses. They don't really have the personnel on offense that they did last year to play that brand that they wanted to run. Right, you had John Michael Schmitz, Mo Ibrahim, obviously Tanner Morgan, a real good game manager for them. Like last year, Chuck Filiaga, I would probably throw him in there too. They had the guys up there to kind of run that physical, kind of lean on you all game. This year, they want that to be their identity. I don't think it's quite there. And I would argue if you're a Minnesota fan, let Callick-McManus cook a little. He's 12 of 14 last week. I know he had a kind of sloppy interception at the end of the half, but that dude can absolutely rip it. They don't call him the Greek rifle for no reason. I mean,
but
he has
not only him, they have good skill. Like they have good skill players. I think Daniel Jackson's really emerged into a high quality receiver. Corey Crooms is giving you good work at the number 2 spot. And the fact that they're not using Brevin Spanford really at all, and he's got less than 100 yards on the season, is preposterous, especially when you're offense really isn't humming along like I think it needs to be. It's again, if they were running the ball really consistently and winning like their games, you're not going to hear anything from me. Like, do what works. That's what Michigan did last year.
But she just lost to
There's
Northwestern.
nothing you can say. But like right now, it's like they're not running the ball at that high of a level to like really just neglect the pass rush and let Cal Commandus throw the ball down the field. It's like everything's underneath. It's just they got to open this offense up because they just don't have the firepower up front to play the way they're playing. I don't think.
Yeah, and I think they're going to try and like the way this Michigan front seven, even the back end is playing, coming up and tackling. Like it's going to be, I feel like a long day for Minnesota if you get that level of Michigan defense that you saw last week against Nebraska. They'll get to the pick, and I normally see a spread with Minnesota that's outside of 3 scores, and I'm staying away from it because this is a Minnesota team that can play you tough. It can run the football, control the time of possession. I'm going to tell you right now, if you get that version of Michigan that you saw in Lincoln, Nebraska on Saturday, they're going to cover this spread and they're going to win by a lot because this is a Michigan team that is absolutely paving its way. And I don't even think Jim Harbaugh really cares about covering. He certainly doesn't care about covering the spread, but I don't even think he cares about blowing teams out. But he is just this team. It's kind of hard for them to let off the gas because even when they have the 2s in there, they're still really, really good up front and can run the football. Dale, my take, give me Michigan, all of them points. I think this is an absolute juggernaut of a football team right now.
Yeah, and obviously, like last week, I was wrong. I thought like, oh, Nebraska, like they can muck it up, they can slow it down, and Michigan's not a team that, again, like they do have only like 2 or 3, 4 possessions, maybe and a half. So covering big spreads can be hard. But I'm with you. Like if Michigan's playing the way they're playing, and their offense is as dynamic as it is, with the pass really working and being able to hit explosive plays, like they kind of. Like they easily cover these spreads, especially against like the Big Ten West teams that really I don't think they match up well enough on defense to slow what Michigan's doing down. And obviously Michigan's defense is just going to be such a problem for most of these
This
offenses.
kind of reminds me, and I hate to say this and bring it up, but when Michigan tried to go in 2 years ago and run their offense against the Georgia Bulldogs, where it's like you're trying to kind of control the line of scrimmage against a team that you just don't have the bodies to control the line of scrimmage. Like I just don't think when you look at it, Minnesota doesn't have the bodies to control the line of scrimmage, and they're going to try, but I just don't think they'll do it successfully. Give me Michigan the points. Again, this Michigan team, absolute powerhouse right now. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate y'all rocking with us, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.